Welcome, everybody. Can I get a thumbs up from my team that y'all can hear me? Outstanding. Good, because it's going to be quick because we have an amazing presentation to get to. My name is Joseph Green. I am the CEO of LMSVoice. And on behalf of all of us at LMSVoice, which is a very small team, 90% of which are in the room right now, I'm super excited to welcome you to this presentation of LMSchat, one of the many new programs that we are launching here in 2021. Please enjoy yourself, engage in the chat, stay respectful in that space. Additionally, we have, for the first time, attempted to make the closed captioning available for the first time. This is the second time we've done this, but we messed up last time. If there's an issue with that, please direct message me in the chat and I will see what I can get done to make that happen. We will also be putting the questions in the chat as they are happening, but we will not be live transcribing ourselves. But we're trying to make this as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. So please let us know if we are falling short there, and I will do what I can. This is my first time trying to make it happen. And with that, I would like to introduce my partner in crime, the mastermind behind LMSchat and the curriculum on which we are basing our first guest. Please welcome to say his little bit, Mr. Brian Hannon.
Hello, sorry, I wasn't paying attention, but nice to see you guys. Yeah, I appreciate you guys coming out. I thank Rasheed for being here and joining us, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Brian, excuse me, for all that you do for the organization and for admitting you weren't paying attention to my opening spiel, which tells me that it's time for me to pass the mic to the professional host. So without any further ado, two of my favorite humans. One has been my favorite human for a while. The other one is just kicked him out of first place. She is amazing. He's amazing. Please put your hands together for your host tonight, Kenneth and Milka.
Woo! It's us!
Thank you so much, Joseph. I really appreciate you all for bringing me on. I'm excited to be on this team and welcome you all to LMSchat. We meet once a week or once a month and featuring some amazing artists that we offer through our curriculum, through LMS curriculum. And please allow me to introduce my co-host and colleague, Carroll, DC native, poet, teacher, host, might as well call him a triple threat. For my sweet potato pancake lovers, you know, you all are in good hands. He loves sweet potato pancakes. And his sister is tomorrow. So I hope y'all enjoyed those fun facts.
Thank you. Yeah, shout out. Sawadi's not listening. But anyway, let me introduce the fabulous, who just introduced me, the fabulous and amazing Milka. She hails from Northern VA. Shout out to all the Northern VA fam in the chat. She graduated from William and Mary, and now she's doing a diversity and inclusion. She is a diversity and inclusion fellow at William and Mary. Ooh, words are hard. And 2 years ago, she wrote a self-love song, and it's on SoundCloud. So eventually, I'll force her to put the link in the chat, but not right now, I guess, but maybe. And also, fun fact, she used to play the saxophone, but she didn't use it in the love song. That's a choice. That's very purposeful. Thank you for that introduction, Milka. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good. And I do want to highlight Joseph mentioning this being really accessible. I want to emphasize that we will be doing our best to pose the questions that we ask our lovely guests tonight. So please message Joseph if you all have any problems with that. And I am excited to get us started with our guest tonight, Rasheed Copeland. He is the author of the book of Silence, Manhood as a Pseudoscience, which came out in 2015, and is a multiple recipient of the DC Commission of the Arts and Humanities Fellowship Award. He is also a DC native. So thank you so much, Rasheed.
Rasheed's bio always be the shortest bio for no reason, because we all know he has a very long bio. It's like the bio we read is one way, but like the mental bio that exists in the universe, is very, very long. So real quick, I'll just say, yeah, you got it. I'll just say he's one of my favorite writers. If you ask anybody who does poetry in DC about Rasheed Copeland, they will show you goosebumps on their hands as proof of what he has done and what he will do. He has a book that we're going to talk about a little bit later that you're going to buy this year because, you know, this year has been a hard year. So, you know, later on, you're going to need the book. And he's just a dope person. Like, we're going to give you his Instagram. Follow him on Instagram. He be styling. So I feel like I've said enough now. Do you want to help welcome him up with me, Milka?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you. So Rasheed right now will be reading his fabulous poem, which you can find on the LMSVoice curriculum for teachers, students. And the poem is When Puffy Says, and We Won't Stop because We Can't Stop.
Hello, everybody. I think of a good night's sleep, an exhale taking its precious time to leave my lungs, unworried about the breathing to come. If only I did not hail from the sweet state of panic. The town's river, my adrenaline raging without cease. I'd love peace, but the moon is pulling me by my water. I know this is no way to live, but I was born here. A mobile of vultures orbiting above my crib, the noise you speak. Bragging about the luxury of your stillness reminds me that some children are told to pick flowers while others are told to pick a tree switch that'll best write a lesson across their hide. And my skin is a master course written in welts. I touch myself and read about the years I cannot escape. I hold my kids and pray our embrace is not a history repeating itself. Oh.
Hey, word, give it up in the chat. It's in Zoom, you can't size people,
Yeah,
but
it's an
please.
interesting dynamic.
Yeah. Just let Rasheed know in the chat that everyone's clapping very loudly. I think it sounds very bad.
Thank you very much.
Dope. So real quick, just so you all know what we're about to do too, as well as Rasheed. So first, we're gonna have a bunch of questions about the poem, some that you sent in actually, and we're gonna go through that. Then we're gonna stop, have a message from our sponsors, which could be paying us more, but we live and learn. And then we're gonna get back to questions. We have a few more, and then we got a bunch of weird, bizarre questions to end it off. Not weird and bizarre, but hopefully, I hope one of them stumps you, if I'm being truthfully truthful. But cool. Thank you, Rasheed, for coming. Thank you for reading that piece. How you feeling? How you living?
I'm good. Nice and hydrated and safe. It's always a wonderful thing. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing pretty good. Shout out safety. So yeah, we got a bunch of questions for you. A lot of people sent in questions, and we will actually start with one of them. We will start with this is coming, and I feel like this is just a perfect first question. From Jennifer Hiller from Arborview High School in Las Vegas, Nevada. Shout out Arborview High School. So she asked, can you talk to us about the title? I don't know too much about the song, but it seems like the lyrics have a positive connotation about success and getting ahead. In the context of the poem, though, it seems entirely different. Can't and won't aren't the same thing. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so anybody who's like kind of I guess astute or knowledgeable about like 90s hip hop, they know Bad Boy Records had a ridiculous run between Biggie Smalls, Maze, everybody. And so the title isn't necessarily from one song. It was kind of like Diddy's ad-libs on a lot of the songs because their run was just so great. And he's just like, yo, and we can't stop because we won't stop. Like, and there's one time where he's just like, we don't even know how to stop. Like, and that just always stuck with me. So when I was writing the poem, I am very much a laugh to keep from crying sort of person, and I got a bit of a dark humor or morbid. And so I just started thinking about myself, like, and all of the sorts of things that will take a lot of work for me to like stop. So it's you know, trauma, sort of behavior, and how sometimes it's not just as easy as saying, oh, I'm going to stop being this way, or I'm going to stop thinking this way or feeling this way. And how a lot of these things, in a lot of ways, they are handed down to us, not just one generation, 2, 3 generations. You know, the sorts of things that are normalized for us to the point where we can't stop. Like it's habitual, second nature even. Yeah, you know, and very astute observation as far as the can't and won't. You know, because, you know, can't is like, it definitely connotes this very like inability. You like, you just can't. And just with the book that I have been writing, the manuscript, it examines a lot of what we believe to be just these innate things in us, versus things that are just very, very deeply rooted and hardwired, that might take a bit of undoing, but are able to do. I come from a lot of people who just very much, you know, like, this is just who I am. This is how I am. I can't change, you know, like when it's like, no, you could, but as we say, you won't. And so, yeah, that's kind of where the idea came from. You know, it's not just one song, but, you know, Diddy used to just say that all over the place. And it was just an interesting way for me to enter this poem.
I think it's really interesting you said about how like there are things in ourselves and also in our poetry that like we need to put under further investigation. And I know like we were talking about the talk you had with Jason and Candace a few days ago, and I know during that you said like one part of your art and why you do art is finding the truth and finding like the truth in yourself and the truth in your work. Do you feel like or I guess I'm just curious about like how that, I know like everybody has a process where they're building poetry, but how does the process of like finding the truth in your work and maybe like what you're producing come about?
So it's somewhat of, I guess, a microcosm of how it comes out in just my normal everyday life. I am of the ideal in the belief that the truth is constant and it is omnipresent. Whereas, you know, like when I think about finding the truth, I don't have to go search versus I have to look within myself, you know, or kind of peel back the layers of what people have placed upon the truth, so to speak, so that I can find the truth. When I think of the truth, again, my idea is just that which is. You know, when something is, nothing's going to stop that. You can put layers of whatever over it. You can put this lie over it. You can dress it this way. But the truth going to be the truth. It's always going to be that way. And so even when I try to enter poems, that's how I look at it, as if the truth is here. Now, I can go about it a bunch of ways. I can make it very gaudy. You know, I can, you know, kind of do this roundabout way and just make the language so flowery or so morbid or whatever, that, you know, like the truth is a little less obvious. Or I can just, you know, like take the meat of the poem and just decide that I'm going to just relay this very straightforward. Either way, the truth is there. And I think depending on who you are in the audience or how you read, you'll arrive to that truth, maybe in a different way.
And I know you said like with this one, or I'm just curious because I know you said earlier it was like, it's a little bit of a morbid joke, but also like, you know, like I think in the same way that like, I guess like dark comedies are like satirical, but also that doesn't mean they're necessarily playful.
Right.
Do you feel like, I guess I'm curious, you talked about the roundabout way you get to the truth. How did you get to the truth in this poem?
So I would say the last lines, like the last couplet, so to speak, when I'm speaking about my children, because they have been a source of me not playing around, so to speak, not, you know, like just not, you know, sugarcoating things. And, you know, like we are, but especially when it comes to kids, we think that we have to protect them from the truth. And I think what helped me in my own rearing was when my parents were very truthful to me. And And so I think that's what I constantly worry about here. That's really what the poem is about. It's not handing down the sort of a normalized dysfunction that I was given. In a lot of ways, I was given the truth, but in a lot of ways, you know, because people weren't ready to deal with the truth within themselves, I was given their very veiled attempts at the truth, which, you know, like just informed me in a way that I don't want to inform my children. And so that's, I think, how I got to the truth, is just by recognizing that there's a reason for me getting it. I could play around her, but I don't want this sort of harm to be visited upon my children. So I have to be sure to relay and make clear that, hey, it's not as simple, you know, as being okay. There's work to do to be okay. It's not just simple as saying do better, or, you know, 'cause a lot of parents say that, you know, like we got our whoopings or whatever, when we got our little backlook, like, when I have my kids, I'm gonna never treat them this way. I'm gonna run away, you know, like, and then we go into the same cycles that we had because we understand a little more. But yeah, I think that's how I got to the truth, just by recognizing that there was, my children are at stake always now. Well, I can't do it solely for them. They are a catalyst for why I need to make sure that I am telling the truth, because otherwise they're harmed.
Word. Also, shout out Rasheed's kid. Rasheed, definitely top 5 cutest kids, poetry wise.
Yeah, they're awesome. Thanks. I made it myself, you know.
Hey, that's A1. Let me stop. Okay, we got a few more questions for you. All that was heat. I feel like, again, we're on Zoom, so I can't like be like, go, yeah, spit, okay, you know, but know that that's happening internally. So we got a few more questions from Natalia Penna, coming to us. She is a student in Hayfield Secondary School, Alexandria, Virginia. Shout out, Virginia. I don't know why I said it like that. It's just ingrained in me. So the question is, what is your process for creating new pieces? Is it different for a spoken word or slam poem, or simply written? And then I guess also an extension of that is like, if you want to talk about like how you got to this. I know you said like you the last line for like the truth in it, but like I don't know if it started when you heard the Diddy song. It was like, this is about to be a poem one day.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it wasn't quite like that with this poem. It was very much, you know, but the first lines of the poem came to me. It was the visual of the mobile of vultures, you know, like with the babies. You know, just this idea that there was this impending doom even before I got here, and even as a youth. And that's kind of what the poem was shaped around. And then as it was really after I read the poem and was thinking about what I was trying to say with the poem that the Diddy line kind of.
Oh, so it came like at the end.
Yeah,
like,
low key,
wow.
I title a lot. I'm not horrible at titles, but like they usually come at the end. Like, and so yeah, it's a way, kind of like a frame, so to speak. But yeah, so my process for creating pieces used to be different. I am of the ideal that a poem is a poem, whether you want to call it a spoken word poem, whether you want to call it slam or whatever. I've seen people win slams with form poetry, pantoums, and, you know, guzzles. I always get that name.
I wish I knew how to say
all
it.
sorts of form poetry that, you know, like that, you know, the canon, so to speak, says it's the high art, so to speak. I've seen it used in ways that are unconventional and that garner success. And on the flip side of that, I have seen spoken word, so to speak, slam poets, so to speak, have this large success on the page. And so I have gotten away from kind of defining it. But there was a point where, you know, especially when I was heavy in slam or spoken word, that I wrote the poems in a certain way. I would set the poems up this way. I know that, you know, when at that 2-minute mark, the Volta's got to come and I got to switch this poem over and, you know, kind of bring it home, you know, because we're taught that way in a lot of ways, whether it's formally taught in the workshops, through our teams, or just watching people. We see how the dynamics work, and what works and what doesn't. Again, getting to the truth, I've had to reassess that, and question whether or not this is going to allow me to best present my truth. And in a lot of ways, it just didn't. And like I was saying in another talk earlier this week, it had gotten to a point where I would recite poems and I would be running out of breath because the way I wrote it is counterintuitive to how I actually talk and how I actually pause when I'm breathing. And so that sort of stuff I took into consideration and just decided, you know, I'm gonna write this poem down, how it comes to me, and then I will recite it and read it in whatever way that I need to. And so, yeah, like, and I've been able to do a lot with that. I love performing. And so it's interesting the way you can take the same words and add humor to it, you know, or make it a little more somber than normal. And that's just based on the words. So I don't enter it differently now, but I have, you know, done it before. And as far as the process goes, it's really whatever works at that moment, seriously. Like I said, sometimes I'll start with the ending. Sometimes I'll start with the title. Sometimes it'll just be piecemeal where I'm like, I thought of this and thought of this. It's really like puzzle-like. So that's just how it goes.
All right, word. Please, somebody remind me, because Rasheed is capping, but Rasheed has written one book, and hopefully, like towards the end, we'll talk about like your process for writing the book that is coming out that everybody's gonna buy who's on this call. But I think it's interesting you talked about like breath and the way it works, and you know, I guess the translation of breath when you're speaking in breath on the page, because I know like reading it for a lot of the students or a lot of people, like you have a lot of these breaks between the words where it's like we're not reading it that way, but it does give us this like breath as we're going through. How do you decide when you're writing, like where are you putting these breaks at and why?
It's similar to that. It's breaks. I love line breaks, right? You know, one of those lines where it's like you're saying something. Andre 3000's one of my favorites at how he you know, does line breaks.
He do be doing that, low key.
Yeah,
Andre.
think of anything offhand of what, but like I know it every time because I am and I think that was, you know, that might be a question later, but like a lot of my poetry sensibilities came from hip hop, flat out. That's the way I came in it. And I noticed he does that a lot. And visually, I don't like how the line breaks look on the page. And so sometimes I'll just do it in the middle of the line. And I'm just like, all right, I'm done right here, but let me pause and do it right there. And, you know, other times as well, but it's just for the sake of breath. When I feel like the way I talk, which is not necessarily iambic pentameter, they say, I guess back in the day, people spoke in iambic pentameter, but I don't think we speak in that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that was this is random, but that was such a crazy moment in school where they were like, you write now, iambic pentameter. I'm like, then why can't I write like that? Why am I doing this wrong?
It's not the truth. I mean, I'm not gonna pull the scale out and count, but like low key, we don't, especially like with the advent of more slang and just vernacular, not too many people are actually speaking in iambic pentameter. But yeah, like I write it the way I speak, the way I kind of pause in conversation. And so that's how it shows up on the page a lot of times. Or else not. I don't know if you guys have seen Anchorman with Ron Burgundy, where it's like he'll read anything on the teleprompter. If I have it all boxed in, I will literally be gasping for air trying to even though I know, like, yo, you didn't write it to be read that way, I'll still be going that way. So I have to like remind
If
myself.
anybody was trying to catch Rasheed lacking, you now know his weakness.
Right.
His one weakness.
Yeah.
Rasheed, I know you wrote this poem recently, but you know, after writing it and having published it and kind of talking it out with other people, like, have you felt differently about this poem now since when you wrote it? Did you think that it was going to kind of evolve into this meaning?
I don't think I have. My thing with poems, because I'm always giving myself the negative. So once I let it go, I try to like just stay away from it. I always remember all my English teachers. You know, and shout outs to English teachers. This is not like a jab or
English teachers.
but like I would be in there in the room, you know, like, and they're dissecting these texts, and I'm like, yo, how did you get that from here? Like, and they're going deep, and I've been able to since do that myself. But like as a student, I was just like, yo, how did you? How? And then, you know, like just, you know, with more of my learning, I just, you know, understood that everybody brings their own sensibilities to the text, and it's going to live on my own. I mean, it's going to live on its own. And so I tried my best to let it live on its own. Now, I mean, if something's just flat out like just inaccurate, then I'd be like, hey, that's not quite what I meant. But, you know, like, and sometimes people come up with better stuff than you even meant it for. You're like, oh, that was a triple entendre. No, I didn't know it was any entendre, but we're going to roll with that. Like, you're right. I am that deep. And so it's just interesting to me to let the poem have a life of its own. Just, you know, breathe, and people receive it at whatever space and whatever consciousness or understanding they're at.
I'm almost thinking to Milka's question. Later is so vague. Now could be later, but like when it comes to like you just put together this book of poetry that again, you're going to be putting out this year. I feel like talking about we're going to ask you about your process, but when it comes to taking older pieces and like reframing them or looking at them for the first time in a while or deciding like, are they going next to these other pieces? Did you find new meaning in some of like your older work that you were putting together in here?
I could say so. You know, because I do the little thing, you know, it's kind of just to be cool. I spread out all the poems on the floor, and, you know, got to take a picture or else it didn't happen. And so like when you are, because for me, whenever I'm putting any sort of manuscript, I try to have some sort of, even if it's not quite like a novel in verse or anything, I do try to have some sort of narrative or flow of what the narrative is. And looking at how certain poems are in conversation with older poems, it's interesting. Like the other day, someone had pointed out, like, hey, you refer to mirrors in a lot of these. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I just, you know, I didn't know it until somebody said it. I'm like, oh, that poem's like 2 years old, and this one's just from another month. And so I think a lot of my interior themes always show up in ways, whether it's like, yo, you're actually not done with this yet, so you're going to write about this, and it's going to speak to another poem. So in that way, I do think they kind of bounce off each other and give each other newer meaning in that way. But yeah, I only like sometimes I'll read it and it's just like, oh, this is just a poem that I wrote. It's the same poem.
I so interesting that you talk about like poems kind of talking to each other. I always thought poets always felt like their poems were like a moment in their life, kind of like how they feel. Like it's very interesting to describe it like that.
Yeah, I mean, again, everything I do, I've learned not to kind of compartmentalize much of anything in my life. And so everything kind of bleeds into everything. And so I'm getting away from the idea of linear time. And, you know, that's not good for my job and everything that's, you know, still going on the clock. But like, it does help to kind of recognize that, like, you know, everything is informing everything, whether it be from way back when or here, even if it's never even touched. There are a lot of ways that things are happening that connect. And so, yeah, like, I think it's been a theme in my life and my kind of like mental strengthening to recognize the things from the past that do inform my current actions now, my pathology now. And it's the same way in the poems, you know, like what I wrote about in the past and how it informs how I am now. But yeah, all sorts of words. I think bone is one that but it just sounds so good. Like, and that's usually what always gets me. It's just such a nice sounding word. And then I'm just like, I gotta put that in there again somehow. And I mean, I never try to force it to the point where it's like, it's just gonna change the meaning or just be so ill placed that it's like, yo, why would you just put that right there?
Bone does sound,
Yeah,
this is true. Bone sounds good.
In this way. Like, yeah, it's just very, very gothic, I guess. I don't know.
Gothic? It's funny that you say gothic. I feel like gothic. That's I feel like in a like Venn diagram, you'd be on the gothic side. I don't know what the other side is, but you
low key, I do. Yeah, I think
Is that morbid humor coming out?
It's the morbid humor.
Yes, definitely. So I would agree with that for sure.
So we have about 3 minutes left. We'll see if we can get one more question or one or two more questions in. This is one more coming to us from Tamara Nicole. I'm sorry if I'm messing your name up. She's a teacher at Claremont High School in Claremont, California. Shout out to Cali fam. Yo, my cousin lives in Cali and he just had a baby. I'm sorry, I'm connecting everything at once. I don't need to do that. But anyway, Tamara asks, I'm drawn to the juxtaposition of visibly silent space with audibly present sound, such as of cease and peace, but also from images that invoke the experience of sound, such as the town's river and the noisy street. And when Puffy says, and we won't stop because we can't stop, would you tell us a little about how you experience the relationship of sounds and silences in your poetry?
So yeah, I think we covered this just a little bit earlier, like the spaces. And this was one of the ones that I looked at and I'm like, these are sorts of things where I'm like, the poem has a life of its own, because when writing it, I didn't really have this sort of thought that was going to be taken from that. Although I can clearly see, you know, like just reading this and like looking at the poem, I'm like, I can see how the reader would get that. It wasn't my intention to kind of bring that sort of thing from out of it. But yeah, the spaces are just where I need to breathe so I won't pass out.
Cool. And I also think, I know like a lot of other poets, and like the poet we had last month, Safia, shout out Safia, talk about like how sound, and specifically how like they don't really know a poem till they read it out loud, right, or like it only makes sense till it's being read out loud. Do you feel similar, or is that like a part of your process where it's like this needs to happen before it's done?
Definitely so. Again, because my entry point into this, into poetry, was part, you know, just enjoying music, and part being on stage. And so every poem I wrote, and even now, every poem I wrote is with the intent that somebody's going to hear my voice saying it. And so, again, that's how I get trapped in some certain words, because like, to me, it has to sound good. It definitely has to make sense as well, but it's... it's what I used to say about a lot of conscious rap to me. I hate conscious rap because while it's giving you this wonderful message, and we could argue that a lot of it's hotep, low key, but like sonically, it doesn't sound good to me. And so it's like, I don't care how much knowledge you're kicking, if it doesn't hit my ear, if it doesn't gut punch me, it's like, I'm sorry. You know, like you have to keep the Asiatic bars somewhere else. And so that's always in my mind. How does this sound? How does this line? How does it hit the, you know, like even with, you know, like, oh, this kind of rhymes, inverted, like, you know, all of that. I am definitely a student of like the oral tradition. So definitely, if the poem doesn't sound good, no one else will ever see it. That's just the way it is for me.
Rasheed, I'm happy you brought up hip hop, because we have a lot more in store for you, along with our culture questions coming up. But before we get to that section and for you to take a breather, we have a commercial break with our Joseph Green, and he'll be talking to us about LMSVoice, along with plugging in Rasheed's social media. So Joseph, can you please join us?
Yes, with our Joseph Green. Never been referred to as that before. Let me do the whole spotlight joint. So I'm going to say something, and Brian Hannon's going to get up here and he's going to say something. So let's put the whole team up here in the spotlight for the commercial, while our hosts relieve their dry and parched mouths from all of that beautiful, interesting conversation. No one can hear anything I'm saying, can you? Not a word, because my mic was muted. Can you hear me now? Yes, awesome, thank you. And Kenny is trying to play with me. Hi, my name is Joseph Green, and if you weren't here at the beginning, I am the CEO of LMSVoice, and I am super excited that you decided to take the time to be here with us for this amazing conversation that is being hosted by Kenny Carroll and Rasheed Copeland. On behalf of myself, I apologize for that interruption. Thought I had that feature locked down. I did not, but one interruption don't stop the show. So I appreciate the way the professionalism with my host and my guest handled that moment, and we'll keep it moving. The reason why I wanted to chat with you real quick, soon we'll have like graphics and you won't even have to like see me anymore, but this is like our second month, and I wanted to just shout out all of the amazing things that we have going on at LMSVoice. We have the amazing curriculum put together by Brian Hannon that is being added to every month, highlighting contemporary poets, many of them, most of them poets of color, and using their work and their words to teach in classrooms and in after school programs and in your bedroom if that's where you want to do the writing workshop. It doesn't matter. The work is there and available to you, and we ask you to go see it and share it with your people. And if you're appreciating it, go ahead and put it in the chat. Other than that, we have an amazing video series that we finally finished editing and will be premiering in March, the After Series, which is another group of amazing poets who have given us their words and have created writing workshops so that you can listen to them, listen to what they love about their poem, and then they guide you through a writing workshop to create an after poem, thusly the After Series, coming March 1st, finally. And without any further ado, I would like to pass the mic to Brian Hannon to tell you about who we got next in the LMS chat. Don't forget that we have so many more amazing words to come from Rasheed Copeland, but we want to get y'all a little excited about next week. And I will be putting Rasheed Copeland's, all of his social media in the chat multiple times between now and the end of the show so that you can follow this brilliant man before this next project comes out. And you can't even get in his DMs, all right? Because that's what's about to happen. Brian Hannon, tell him what's coming up next.
All right, so next month, it's the last Thursday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We will be hosting Patricia Smith, and we should be going over her poem called Biting Back, and it's about having her son leave for college and kind of move distance, grow distance from her. But yeah, same reaction as Kenny and Rasheed. Patricia Smith is a very wonderful and talented poet, and we are very excited to have her. So I encourage you guys to come back out next month. But yeah. Joseph, back to you.
Back to me? Nah, son. Back to our brilliant host to introduce Rasheed, who will then talk about his amazing projects coming up and give us some exclusive poetry. Let's do it.
Oh, Kenny's on.
He can't unmute.
With us. Still playing with us. I see.
No, he can't.
I'm back. They tried to keep me down.
Like that.
They tried to keep me from speaking. Like that. But I am. Let me get my conscious raps off philosophies and try to stop in me. Let me stop. Yeah.
As Kenny continues playing games with us, I think Rasheed was about to give us some exclusive poetry from his upcoming book. So, yes. Rasheed, please bless us with this conscious rap, poetry, word, whatever, all three. I think he's playing with us.
Yeah, I think he also can't unmute
Hey, look
himself.
what you
If
did, this
you like
domino
that, see,
effect.
they try to keep you down,
They
Rasheed.
try to hold us down, Kenny.
Yeah.
Kenny, hold us. All right, so as you guys have been hearing, I do have an upcoming chapbook coming out. I got tired of the publication telling me no, so I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna put this joint out myself, and hopefully people will enjoy it, because that's really what I write these poems for, is to connect with people, not necessarily to be picked, but to, you know, get to people. The book is entitled Mud Jubilee. And this is like the first poem off of the book. The book is just about mental wellness and just trying to exist, so to speak. And so this poem is entitled Log. And it's just about putting on that face when you don't really have the face to put on, if that makes any sense. And in these times, the sky has lowered onto my back. I am black, thus ill-afforded license to call in sad. The curtain call remains at the first taste of last night's sobbing inside my morning yawn. So I ready myself to perform, fluff the screams out my pillow and get on with my day. My father left me his smile in the will. It was the last lie he told. Held it for me to be used only in cases of pain. I crack it every day. I go forth. I go hours untouched in a crowd of hands, hours unseen in a field of eyes, but I'm good. It is my favorite scripture to recite from the big book of falsehoods, a loose translation of I'm strong, I'm good, at guising my melancholy as output. I'm not blue, I'm busy, fruitful. Ain't I a tree wrought with a syrup sailing? My ripened teardrops plucked from my eyes for breakfast in bed, confide only in my bed. But there is no call for any long con of optimism. No demand for the free labor of glee. No audience expecting me to make magic of the muck. Conduct some mud jubilee that unburdens the offense from their current living in their conscience. Keeps my sides from bleeding onto the shirts, invites the sun in to speckle through my holes until I am shown as a confection of light. Even if the light is so bright, it burns.
Rasheed, oh my God.
Come on, boy.
His virtual hands are tapping. I hope you can hear him through this audio. Thank you so much for exclusive
Thank you for having me.
We love the claps in the chat. Shout out to claps in the chat.
Thank you. I think that was a great segue into our next section, culture questions. I'm going to follow in Kenny's footsteps and start us off with an audience question. And so this is going to be a smooth transition into kind of understanding you beyond the poet, but also you and the poet are kind of intertwined. So I think let's start off with who has been your source of inspiration in DC? And this is coming from Marjan Nadiri, who's a student from UVA, coming from Charlottesville, Virginia.
Oh gosh, the list is endless. We're gonna start with Kenny because he's like right here. It's not like a brown notes and thing, like legit. Kenny's flat out if you guys don't know. Droopy, Broke Baller, Dwayne B, Pages Matan, Candace Elo, Jason Reynolds, people who I, like met on this scene and just showed me that you could just do it big and that you could be imaginative and you could write about more than just your little puppy love. Because that's what I kind of came on the scene writing about, my little broken heart. The poems are still very much brokenhearted, as you can see, but it ain't, like it's a different sort of thing. But like Gail Danley, Sonia Renee Taylor, just the list goes on. Twain Dooley, Amin Dalal, just everybody, just so many people, like seriously, that have just pushed me to like sharpen my pen, my craft, my just everything. DC is, if you guys don't know, there are so many people in DC, like literally from here, like doing wonderful things, winning medals and New York Times best-selling, and like just incredible. And I'm glad to be amongst that. And yes, Liz and Clint. Liz has a freaking Estee Lauder commercial, you know, like it's incredible what the people who have come through DC have been able to do, and how they've been able to live out their dreams and be themselves doing it. And then that in and of itself inspires me to be my true self, and you know, do it that way.
The list is long. I'll be trying to tell him, Rasheed. I'll be trying to tell him.
Shout out to everybody, man. It's so many people.
No, I like how you're talking about, you know, you talk about the relationships that you've had with other poets and how they've influenced you in your writing as a poet. You know, what other areas have influenced your poetry? And like, I know this poem is referencing hip hop, is referencing Diddy. You know, what does hip hop, what does music, what kind of influence does it have on you and your poetry?
Just, I mean, it's the like number one thing that informs my poetry. And it informs my politics. Like at one point, like that was just all I did, was like I wasn't necessarily rapping, but you could tell that like all the poems were very punchline heavy. It was very like, because that's the sort of rap that I was into. That's the sort of, you know, like a lot of Lupe Fiasco, and like that was what I loved. You know, like those who could be imaginative. And again, just not even just rap, but just music in general. How, you know, to me, rap, your voice is somewhat of the instrument. It gives you the melody. And I like to mimic that a lot in my work, so that there's a certain musicality to it, so that it's easy to listen to, you know, like, so that I'm not putting people to sleep when I read. And so just music has been everything to my work. Recently, just wellness, mental health, safety has been big inspirations to my work, just trying to examine what that looks like. Kosi Dunn has been, I know it's a person out, you know, but shout out to Kosi because again, one, he's just awesome. But also this prompt that I continue to go back to, and that, you know, there's a few poems in the book, just whose imagination birthed you. Imagination plays such a big part in my work, like how I'm perceived by others, how I perceive myself, how I want to recreate myself, how I want to unlearn and undo things so that I can build myself in the way that I enjoy, be the person that I like being. And so all of that just inspires and informs my poetry.
You know, in an interview, I know you talk about safety in writing, and I think specifically, you know, creating a safe space for yourself and becoming a safe space for those around you. You know, have you always felt like you were in a safe space in your writing? And like, who, in addition to those poets, like who helped influence that feeling of safety?
So I can say that I haven't always felt like I am in a safe space with writing. And again, because the way my art reflects my life, I've not always been in a safe space with myself. But again, the more I strive towards just being unafraid of the truth, the more I can reflect that in my work. I've had for a while a hard time talking about family and past, because it always feels like an indictment on the things that went wrong in my life. And, you know, family's very much implicated in a lot of ways. But again, it's not going to stop that from being the truth, whether I say it or not. And so I'm trying to get to a space where I'm just better with that. And again, as I was saying, I recently had a reading with Candace Elo and Jason Reynolds, and I was saying that Candace Elo has been a big inspiration for me to write safety within. And again, it's because of her leaning towards the truth in her poetry. It makes me feel like I can lean towards the truth, and I feel like that there is safety in the truth, even if the truth is not, you know, like good truth, so to speak. Like, it's safe because it is. It's the truth. And you can't, it doesn't disillusion, like it doesn't like make you, it doesn't give you any illusions about what it is. And so you can stand on that and move however you need to move. And so, yeah, Candace, other poets who, Sonny Patterson is somebody who also makes me, inspires me as far as safety and poetry goes. Just so many. Like, I am a student of so many people, like legit. People who I've expressed this to, people who I have not expressed it to. Yeah, there's so many, too many to name.
I kind of want to throw just because I think we talked about we're talking about safety and poetry, but I think I'm also curious, like, we in a pandemic, we in a bunch of stuff. You're about to put out a book now. So I'm curious how you've been able to protect yourself as a poet, or more so as a person, and take care of yourself, or if like writing has been a part of taking care of yourself, or if it's been at times a negative.
Writing has been, it's been a little bit of both. I always tell people when people are like, oh, you know, the poetry is therapeutic, and I can't speak to anybody else's truth, but therapy is therapy for me. Poetry is just not that. And in fact, there've been a lot of times where I've tried to go to write something that I wasn't ready to write, and that's where I'm triggering myself. And now I'm all, you know, like messed up, having panic attacks, because I have anxiety, you know, like I'm on meds for anxiety. And so like, safety is a big deal for me. It really is. And not safety in the sense of like you don't actually live because you're so confounded, but just, you know, like when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's that first pillar. Like if I can't be safe, I can't get to all of the deep esoteric self-actualizing and all of that. And so I strive towards that. It has been, when I look at being a Black cishet man in America, the same way that there's such a multi-pronged approach at trying to destroy me, I take a multi-pronged approach to cultivating safety. So it is exercise, it is prayer, it is meditation, it is yoga, it is writing, it is loving on the babies, it is a full onslaught. It is medication, which I, you know, like for sure, like it's everything. Therapy, like whatever the moment calls for, it's what I use to cultivate it. All sorts of arts, just whatever art I can, because, you know, like I'll be drawing and, you know, what's the one I just got into? Where it's embroidery. I've been doing that, like trying to, like just all sorts of stuff. Whatever, creativity is definitely a big safe space for me. So yeah.
Who was teaching you those lessons of kind of like not almost abusing your ability to write as a poet? Who kind of like, what was the moment where you realized that like I need to start kind of creating safety for myself and like creating distance and finding other areas of therapeutic or therapy measures? Like when was that moment where you felt like you were engaging?
I don't know if it was a moment versus, again, like I said, there's literally been times where I'm like, I'm going to write about that. Because again, coming out of slam culture, you know, and it's a valid critique, we are taught to mine our traumas to the point where, you know, like, it's just like, yo, put it on stage and have everybody cry with you. But it's like, yo, ain't no therapist waiting on the side, you know? Like, and sometimes you lose the slam. Now I'm all sad, triggered, and I ain't even win the slam. Like, and so just coming out of that space, it was very much like, oh, you have to write about this. You have to write about this. This is a pivotal moment in your life. You got to write about that. Like, you know, and in a lot of ways, you got to write about that because that will absolutely score well. That will get you success. And so even after I stopped slamming, and I wouldn't say stop, I'll go here and there. But like even after I stopped doing it like so frequently, it's still in my mind that I have to write about the bad things. I write about the good things as well, but I can't let pivotal moments that, you know, I can't not let that go, which I'm here to tell you can. There's so much stuff now that I know I'm like, look, I will never write about that. I don't have to write about it. You know, I can talk it out. Therapy, I can like talk to the people about, I don't have to write about every single bad thing that goes on in my life. And so, yeah, like just doing that, I would always be there. And literally, the second panic attack I ever had was because I was writing. Like I was trying my best. And I'm like, I'm hearing my ear go numb and like all the symptoms are coming. I'm just like, nah, you got to get through it. And then it's just this very visceral point where it's like, no, put the pen down. This is what's doing it to you. And from there, you know, I'm not being foolish. I tried hearing it, and every time it would get to that point, I'm like, yo, this is not how I need to go about this. This is not. And I always tell people, if you, any poem that you've heard from me, that, you know, deals with anything that's going on in my life, if it's on the paper, chances are I've done the work to kind of get through it. That's just where I'm at. I would never present anything that I'm currently still like kind of underneath, so to speak, or unable to cope with. But I know that's different for a lot of people. A lot of people do feel like they got to write their way through it. For me, it'd be triggering me. That's all I just be really in a bad space trying to write that way.
Word. Shout out Safety. Also a bunch of young writers I know in the chat. Shout out. Yeah, being safe when you're writing. And all being safe in life, you know. Also a big shout out. I know we was taking shots, but big shout out to the English teachers in the room.
Yeah.
Also specifically, we got a shout out for you, Rasheed. Jennifer Hiller, students in Arborview High School, responded so well to this poem. And I think the whole class, or a part of the class, is here watching. So
yeah, shout out to all of you guys. Keep writing. Hope you guys. Good.
Apparently they got heated. That's crazy. Party was like, oh yeah, I did. But also again, because I forget to, Rasheed's bio is always the smallest bio. Of course, at one point when Rasheed was slamming, he placed second at the International World Poetry.
Yeah, that was a time. Yeah.
I love how you're just like, yeah, that was a different.
Right, that happened, you
know. Cool. So we are almost out of time, but one thing me and Milka like to do before we close out is ask you some weird questions, because you know we're weird, I guess.
Weird or fun, you know, whichever.
Weird or fun.
Right.
You're right. I guess I feel like, okay. Yeah, do you want to read the first question, Milka? And then maybe
yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of a fun question, but you know, if you weren't doing poetry, you know, what other kind of professional career would you be considering? Or would you have considered?
Basketball? I mean, I'm really short. Well, not really short, but
no
like
problem.
basketball.
You hoop dreaming?
Yo, I really be hooping. Yeah, like, you know, I always tell people, like, when I first started poetry, I was going to the open mic. Shout out to Spit That at Milka. Spit That at everywhere. Wayne B. and Droopy. Like, that Thursday was my basketball Thursday. Me and the homies, we would always go to the rec, and like we would be hooping, like, and so in my mind, in my like wildest dreams, I would be like a foot taller, dunking on folk, you know, like that's what it would be. That or a cartoonist. I always wanted to like do that, like since I was a really little kid, and I draw pretty well too.
Cool. I think we have time for one more weird question. We had such a great list. It's fine. If your life had a theme song, so this is, you know, at the beginning of the Rasheed show, this is what they play every time. What is that song?
Oh gosh, one song.
Yeah.
You know what? Like, again, this book is coming out May 1st. Hopefully, you guys are following me. Mud Jubilee. It'll be out. In the process, and eventually I'll release it. I created a playlist for the book, and so there's like low key a playlist of theme songs. I'm trying to think if there's like one. If I just had Off the Break, I would say "Trouble Man" by Marvin Gaye. It's like a nice one that kind of encompasses the whole shebang. They're so good.
I gotta know, will there be a virtual mixtape album coming out, or like a playlist coming out with the book?
Yeah, like, so I'll definitely share the playlist. Like, I was telling everybody, I'm trying to have a lot of fun, like the weeks leading up to the actual release, like little videos and reels and all that sort of stuff. So it'll be coming out, like people will see like where my mind was, and hopefully people will play it while they read, and they'll kind of understand how I chose songs to go with the poems and whatnot. So
so I know it is 9, and that's why Joseph is on the screen.
Popped out of nowhere.
Popped out of nowhere without a word. I feel like Joseph's giving me like, you know, when like your parents are like, wrap it up, and they just stand behind you like,
right.
You're right. I'm trying to do like the bus boys host thing where I'm just standing on the edge of the stage.
bro, when they get on the stage and they just
slowly
like
keeping over. Eye contact.
Virtual cane.
Our amazing host. Put the love in the chat. Do whatever you can to show them their appreciation. Give them smiley faces, whatever it is. Clap, clap, claps. Put the little virtual hands up. Whatever it is, let them know that you appreciated what they did. Again, this is our second time that they have hosted this event because this is only our second event, and we did not lose anybody throughout this program, except for the folk that needed to be lost. Other than that, you all did a wonderful job being a lens into the talent and amazing spirit that is Rasheed Copeland. One of my, forget DC, just poetry people that I look up to, never want to see at a slam. Happy I don't slam anymore, so I don't accidentally have to run into him at a slam. It has always been a pleasure existing in the same space and in time as a writer as you, and the fact that you would give us this space with your conversation means a lot to me, and I know it meant a lot to the people who are watching. We would like to give you the last word before we say good night. So is there anything you would like to say to the people before we exit?
Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for loving poetry. It has done wonders for my life in many, many ways. For those of you who write, keep writing, and keep loving on your family and your friends and everybody.
Thank you for that.
Go follow this man so
yes.
that you may buy his book and listen to the mixtape with me.
Please do. Sheed Emilio, SheedEmilio. It's in the thingy on my name.
We're all in the chat. Additionally, this will be posted on the website and YouTube within the next 7 days, along with Safia's. And hopefully from this point on, we'll keep the captions on and we won't have to spend a month trying to caption these for folks. Until we see you again, stay safe, take care of yourself so you can take care of your people. Have a good night, everybody.
All right.
Good night, everyone.